Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is an exciting day for us. We're thrilled to have been able to engage Tripp Umbach, a very well-known firm who's worked with the Alliance of National Heritage Areas on the economic impact of the 49 heritage areas, as well as some of our colleagues in Pennsylvania and other places. And we're thrilled to have some real numbers that will demonstrate our impact beyond the qualitative and the quality of life that we work so hard to enhance for the area. We have some pretty special people here today. As you all know, we have well, I hope you know that we have a public-private partnership that uses relatively small amounts of public money to create a lot of important initiatives and to help promote and preserve and educate the public about all of our resources and our history, and we tell the story. And at the bottom line, though, there's a lot of economic development. So it's nice to be able to quantify that, and thank you, Paul, for helping us to do that. We have some special people I want to make sure I acknowledge today. The chairman of the board of Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority, Robert Savakinas, over there. Thanks, Bob. And the chairman of the board of our not-for-profit arm, Heritage Valley Partners, Ellen Bush, is with us as well as a board member of the authority board, Tom Welby, who's here with two hats on because he's also the chief of staff representing Representative Marty Flynn, who we sit right in his district in this building. And we also have a representative from the governor's office, Bill Goldsworthy. Bill is over there. And Steve Zaricki from the NEEP Alliance, and Mayor Justin Taylor hiding in the back from Carbondale. Another great partner, because we don't only have partners as historic and cultural and educational entities, but we also have municipal partners, state partners, and federal partners. And we're very glad that they've seen fit to come here and be represented today. And as well as PennDOT, who we work with a lot. April Hannon's here from PennDOT. And last but not least, our state senator, John Blake, who was not only a great advocate for us in Harrisburg, but also was the very first chairman of the board of the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority. So he was here at the creation, and he's in Harrisburg as a champion for what we do. And I know he's on kind of a tight schedule, so Senator Blake, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. I have, as Natalie said, a special place in my heart. While not the first chairman of the board, one chairman of the board.
Early.
Monsignor Quinn, and I believe, trying to think of the others that preceded me, but the fact is that I do have a very special place in my heart for LHVA. First of all, because the very day that the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Plan was announced, I was a little-known member of the Leadership Lackawanna program, and we were facilitating the press conference that day for the release of the plan. So that's when the fuse got lit on the land, the industry, and the people in the LHVA mission. So I was very glad to be part of it. The other thing that, in my tenure as chairman, we lit the fuse on the trail, which has been such an extraordinary success. And I want to commend Natalie, members of the board, all the partners that make that possible, because it's been such a special asset here. And I'm just delighted to see its development. The news of the day, as you'll hear from the report from Tripp Umbach, is about economic impact. And it's so extraordinary to see these numbers, 30 million in economic impact, over close to 400 jobs, 2 million in tax revenue. This is beyond, I think, our expectations at day one, Natalie. It's really quite extraordinary to see how these partnerships, how the leveraging of public and private money have created such economic energy in Lackawanna County. So I can just commend the board. I just want to continue the momentum, and I want to express my deep thanks for continuing to keep me a part of it. So thank you very much, Natalie.
I just want to acknowledge again, Senator Blake is a great advocate, as are all of our state representatives that represent the Lackawanna Heritage Valley. And we appreciate their work in Harrisburg. That's where we get a lot of our money, and grants, as well as through federal money that comes through some state entities like PennDOT, DCNR, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the Department of Community and Economic Development, and other state and national entities. So now I'm going to introduce Paul Umbach, who's the principal of the company, Trip Umbach, that is so skilled and has been sort of an advocate for Scranton in many ways. I first met Paul when he was here working on the formation of the TCMC, the medical school. And so he likes Scranton, he knows Lackawanna County, he knows all the restaurants and all the best places to be. And so he really understands who we are and what we do. And Paul, thank you.
All right, thank you, Natalie.
Let me go.
Great. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful day in Scranton. It's nice to be here. I'm going to put my glasses on so I look twice as smart, so I can see my notes. Thank you very much. We have a great story to tell, and it's the story that you've created, the economic impact of your organization and your partners. And over the years, I guess it's been 25 years now since I've been involved with starting this company, and I don't know how to forward this, but I'm sure it's easy to do. The hardest thing I do as a speaker is technology, and maybe it's. No, I should always, if you're ever a speaker, you should always get this first, and then know how it works, and then it's easy to do. Oh, just hit it like that. Great. Also want to introduce Jennifer Rose, who is the project director. And Jennifer worked on the report and developed the whole report. And any question that you have that's at a real detailed level, Jennifer knows the answer. I'm going to go through kind of a high-level overview of the study, tell you some of the impacts. One thing I do want to say is that only in Scranton have we done all 5 of our nationally known product areas. We've done Healthy Northeast, the medical school, bioscience economic development plans, economic impact for the hospitals, and now tourism. So this is outside of Pittsburgh, the place we visited the most. So I've really enjoyed the time that we've had here, and I've seen so much change in those 25 years. And this is just one example of how so many, Steamtown, of course, was there at that point, but many things have happened. The trail is such a great asset for the community. So those of you that were the pioneers early on to be commended for all that's happened. So much has also happened in downtown. I remember the first time I came to Scranton, I stayed at a Red Roof Inn up on the hill, and now there's so many more things to do and see in the area. Your organization, in the same history really of my association with this community, has grown and has done so much. And one of the things that's always interesting is with so few resources, a staff of maybe 7 or 8, a huge volunteer pool, and associations with so many partners, you're able to leverage so little and create so much economic impact. So when you look at the jobs, and there's about 250 or so heritage tourism jobs in the region, that's really 8 people in a small organization creating that many direct jobs, plus all the indirect jobs. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is this economic and social impact. Natalie said it, I think, really well at the beginning, where she said, we have a lot of qualitative information. We talk a lot about quality of life. We talk about the fact that this makes us a better place to live and a better place to be. But we don't really have hard numbers sometimes to quantify what it means. And for investors in the Heritage Valley that give money and give grants, they want to see that return. They want to know that there's dollars being generated. And that's the real purpose of this study. I think this is an interesting graphic that shows how much more money happens when you get people to stay overnight. You'll see later in some of the analysis that we did. We looked at visitors under 3 lenses. We looked at local day users, people that come and walk on the trail and go to events and go to all the different organizations. We looked at people that also are non-local day users, people from out of state or out of the region that come for the day. And that would be what Jen and I are. We're considered local, we're not from out of state, And then last night, we were actually in the category of overnight hotel stay visitors, and that's where the impact really goes up. And as I had told the reporter that was here a little bit ago, the variety of things to do and all the things that you're able to provide visitors with the opportunity to do extends their stay. And that's why the partnerships are so important. So somebody might come for one thing, stay for several other things, and that means that they're going to need to stay overnight. So I actually have some props. Last night we went to Carl von Luger's, a wonderful steakhouse. My office in Scranton has been at Northern Lights for 15 years. Today I actually bought a Northern Lights t-shirt. We also stayed at the Radisson, which is a nice historic place to stay. So when you're an overnight visitor, you spend a lot more money. And then before we leave, we'll probably have lunch. So part of the operational impacts of LHV is really all the different things that the organization does in the area. So a visitor like Jen and I, we count in that organization's economic impact. We wouldn't be here today if we weren't visiting this organization. The other thing is that when grant funds and investments come in, there's additional spending in the area. So, for example, when we start a program like developing the trail, there's money that's spent in developing the trail. There's dollars that are generated for the management, the maintenance, and the upkeep. But then over time, more people come, they use the trail, they purchase tennis shoes and bikes and things like that. And then the real impact comes when people start to say, hey, let's go to the Lackawanna Valley Heritage area, let's come to this community and let's stay a few days. One of the things we can do is be on the trail. One of the things we can do is visit Steamtown. We can stay for an event. Maybe Carbondale has a festival or something going on. And then we will continue to be in this area for 3 or 4 days. What we find is that that's where the real spending and economic impact comes in. So here's the numbers of just the Lackawanna Heritage Valley's impact, which is $31.3 million, supporting over 380 jobs and creating about $2 million in state government revenue. So one of the things that our senator can do is go back to Harrisburg and say, we got in our coffers from this little organization $2 million. And I don't know how much we get from the state, but I'm sensing it's under $2 million a year. And because I'm sensing it's under $2 million a year, I'm sensing that, it would be great for our senator to be able to say to folks, look, for a little bit that we give, we get a whole bunch back. So if we can give a little bit more, or if there's another program, this area, this is a great place to invest that money. When you add the partners, and there's a graphic later on that we're going to show you on who the partners is, you get up to about $80 million in economic impact. So that would be the impact of all the other collaborators, and we have a nice list of those coming up. So how does this work? Well, direct dollars in this model are only counted from people outside the region. So if somebody from the Scranton area or for Lackawanna County or from the other neighboring counties go to an event or spend some money on tennis shoes or buy a bike or decide to come and enjoy any of the different associations and organizations, that's not counted. The 19.1 million a year, that's every year, that 19.1 million is counted for people like Jen and I who've come from out of the area, who stayed overnight, who bought things, who spent money, who stayed in the region. And so this is a very conservative model of economic impact. This is really just showing what we call in economic impact language fresh dollars. And then those fresh dollars that come from people that come to the area get multiplied by other dollars that are needed to support those dollars. So for example, if we're coming here to do something with Heritage Valley, I gotta stay somewhere, and I have to eat somewhere, and I have to buy things, so that those dollars generate through the economy. Just like with the medical school project, Students come, visitors come. Heritage is the same way that universities and hospitals and industry, it's the same thing. People come and they spend money and they stay. And that equals that. Now, I said there's about 7 or 8 people that work here. How do we get 279 jobs that are supported? Well, those are the jobs that are supported in the heritage area in what we call heritage tourism jobs. People that would not have their job if it wasn't for what this organization is supporting. Now, again, what I love about a fresh dollar model is that you also get fresh jobs. And the way that works is we can honestly say that if it wasn't for this organization, this region would not have those 279 jobs. Those are jobs that are created and sustained in the region. But what about those 107 other jobs? Well, those 107 other jobs is a part of somebody that works at the hotel, a part of somebody who cooked our dinner last night, a part of somebody who made my espresso this morning, and those jobs are also supported, and that's what gets you the big number. I think what's really exciting, though, is the fact that government revenue also increases. And this includes all kinds of government revenue. We had a conversation before this morning on hotel room tax. That's all in this too. And all the other taxes, and I don't know how many taxes there are, but I know there's motor vehicle fuel tax, and I don't know how many, but there's a lot. And there's also all kinds of county and local and property tax. So if people who work here own a house, they're paying taxes on that, and it all adds up into sales tax. Even though Pennsylvania's got a really great low sales tax, there's still people paying sales tax when they buy things. We had a little trip to Staples last night to make copies, and that's all adding into the tax revenue. I really like this slide, and I want to comment on this slide a little bit. This is different than in our other places. We did a national study, and I think we've done about 10 other special studies like this for national heritage areas. We're a nationally known company in tourism and heritage tourism. But nobody that we work with has such a list of collaborators. In fact, some of the people we work with can't even have one person that can say they work with. In most communities where we work, each player would kind of be in competition with each other, and they can't believe how Natalie and her team have connected. And I think it's in the water. I think it's in the culture. And I also think it's part of her personality. How can you not collaborate with her? She doesn't give you a chance not to. But I think that what we have found is, and the reason they've won a national award for this roundtable is this roundtable is not everywhere. In fact, when we go to other places and we say in this region they all sit around and collaborate, they say we can't even get someone to talk to us on the phone if they're from another group. So I think that together, when you look at all the different groups, festivals and museums and cultural centers, and all the other stuff going on, you get into an economic impact of what we call the heritage tourism and cultural industry of about $80 million a year. And one example is Steamtown. And Steamtown has just done an economic impact study of their own. And to give you kind of an example of how that kind of connects to this $80 million number, they have about a $5 million economic impact every year. And they also have about 82,000 visitors, and they create just on their own and sustain 59 of those jobs. So if you kind of look at Steamtown as one example, and you look at their impact, and then you start looking at the impact of all these other things, you roll up to a bigger impact. And I think it's really unique to have a national park service and a national heritage area. It's like what I always say about Pittsburgh. We're the only city in the world that has 2 of the top 50 universities in the world in one little tiny little city. Well, you are one of the few places that have a national heritage area and a national park service. You could walk to the 2 of them. Well, that creates what I believe to be a very important core that then allows all these other things to connect. And there's probably, and this is probably just the folks we got data from. There are many more people not on this list. So if you're not on this list, don't have your feelings hurt. we could only measure what we could gather data for. There's probably a lot more than that. And then we looked at this kind of as the summary slide. Those are some of the takeaways. One thing I do want to end with is by saying that a couple years ago, I think it was in 2009, this organization did a trail study, and they showed that the economic impact of the trail was about $28 million in how much stuff people bought and how much industry they supported. There's a recreation, tourism, and health industry. I don't know if you know about this industry, but it's sort of like recreation, health, and wellness. And it's growing. It's growing real fast. And it's all about people getting out and doing things, active things. Like in Pittsburgh, I have a kayak, I have a bike, on my trails, I'm on my river, and that's a big growing industry. Well, you're a big part of that industry here. But that study was done in 2009, and it came out at $28 million. But that was before the extensions, many extensions of the trail. So one of the things that Natalie and her team are thinking about is updating that trail study and having a chance to say, okay, how much more now is just the trail meaning? And some of that trail's impact is in our study because we counted just the out-of-town fresh dollars. That study looked at the whole industry of people buying things and spending money on the trail. But we feel that that's probably underestimated right now because the trail has become such a big economic engine on its own. So that's another thing that's in the works and something coming up. I also think, one last thing, is that one nice thing about economic impact and reason why we've been successful is that people want to keep measuring. And I would say in 3 or 5 years, it'd be interesting to see how much bigger heritage tourism becomes in the region. And I think so down the road, you'll get this is a nice benchmark to be able to say we're at this many jobs. Someday you'll be at 1,000 jobs. And I know that you're in competition with the 49 other heritage areas and the hundreds of other parks. Everybody wants to see where they are. But I think that you're just at the beginning. This is my last point. You're just at the beginning of what economic impact you can have. So that's my presentation. Open for questions or comments. Love to hear your thoughts. And again, if I can't answer it, I know Jen knows all the numbers. And I want to thank you for letting me come to Scranton again. I love the invitation. It's great to be here. So thank you. Hi.
Well, 2 questions actually.
Yeah.
The first is, you talked about the 19 million from the local, as you said, Pennsylvania. How far is our reach in terms of tourism? Susan's probably interested in this, in terms of, and how can we go beyond whatever that group is that comes in for a day or overnight?
Yeah, it's a very good point. We look at your catchment area being New York, New Jersey, and what we call Eastern Pennsylvania. And if you look at maybe a 200-mile region around here, you're going to get most of your tourists and most of your visitors from that area because there's a natural mountain barrier. Although I come to Scranton all the time from Pittsburgh, and it's my second home, there's not a lot of movement that way. From south of the Turnpike, you get kind of more into that Gettysburg, Harrisburg, Baltimore, D.C., and then certainly Adirondacks are a different market. So I think that you do very well in that multi-state regional draw. I think the key is getting people to come a little further. They'll stay longer, they'll spend more, but that's kind of my geography for how we look at the region in and out of area.
And my second question is, a couple of weeks ago, Natalie and her team hosted this phenomenal conference in Carbondale as it related to the impact from businesses investing in major cities like Chattanooga, which had this vision of 30 years of trails that brought Volkswagen and 3,000 or 4,000 jobs to that city, along with another European company. From your experience and your last point about we're at the beginning, how do we leverage this wonderful success into other forms of economic impact, bringing in major employers that look at the trails as a win-win?
Yeah, I think that what you're going to have to do is continue to promote to your economic development partners and be at the table with your economic development partners as very important assets and not what I would call icing on the cake, or, oh, that's nice too. What Chattanooga was able to do, and what other cities have been able to do, Spokane, Washington is another good example. They have a great waterfall that goes right through their downtown, is they've said that they're close to nature, close to perfect, which is their slogan, is a key leading driver for economic development, and not, oh, that's a nice thing. So when Spokane is putting itself against other cities, it's leading with these close to nature, close to perfect, and then the economic development people get into sites and taxes and all the basic bread and butter stuff. I think, if I'm not wrong, I don't want to be wrong on this, I think here it's probably more traditional that economic development looks at all those factors, and then they throw in, oh, and by the way, we have a growing trail system, and I think it's just a matter of how you position it. But the cities that have positioned recreation and tourism and assets higher have done better than those who have said, we'll get to that later, oh, by the way, we have nice outdoor recreation, we have some nice parks. And so that's I think it's really educating and communicating with those partners. And I think, you know why? Because all things are pretty equal out there when people make company decisions. And they pick those quality of life things more than you think. So, hope that helps. It was good questions. Thank you. Yeah.
In terms of industry statewide, I used to think, I guess these are old facts from my standpoint, I'm not in your business, but that it was agricultural resources and tourism. Do you know what the status is now in terms of dollars in the state and the economic impact of tourism statewide?
Yeah.
Is it the second largest industry, the first? Or?
You know, it's hard sometimes to put those industries into those same traditional buckets, but tourism is still in the top 3 industries in Pennsylvania. I think the industry that's grown the fastest and has become the most dominant is healthcare industry. And in almost all Pennsylvania towns now, the largest employer is the hospital. That sometimes seems a little sad when you're in some towns where the hospital is like the only employer of any size, because industry, traditional industry has. But I feel that tourism, when it connects with health, like the healthcare industry, when it connects with industries that are looking for what we call footloose employees. Footloose employees are me and Jen. We could work and live anywhere in the United States. And there's people have done theories and they have studies on this, and there's a guy from Carnegie Mellon that wrote many books on this, about how you really want the employees to be able to, the people who make the most money in America are people that can live anywhere they want. Okay? Consultants like us and others that can start their own business, they can start a business anywhere they want. Those are the people. So are they tourists? Well, they might be tourists at first, but then they become entrepreneurs. So I think there's been some blurring. I mean, back 100 years ago or 50 years ago, there was manufacturing. It was pretty defined. There was agriculture, very defined. And there was tourism, and there was, I think the sectors are blurring a little more now. And I think you're in a great position, because we talked last night at dinner. You're a little bit of everything. Your health, your wellness, your heritage, your culture, you're a bunch of things. And I think that you help build more because you're touching all those other things. So, other thought? Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi. I'm going to guess that the ratio of overnight visitors to total visitors is probably very low. Are there any successful strategies that other areas have undertaken to get more of the total visitors to be overnight?
Yeah. And you're exactly right. From our models, you're looking at overnight visitors being a smaller percentage. Usually it's about 1/3. You'd love to get that to be 2/3. The best strategy is what you're doing. You just have to keep doing it, and that is the round table, the packaging, the hard work of collaboration, the hard work of joint marketing, the difficult work of communicating all of the different things so people can stay longer. Even in Pittsburgh, where we are, and we've done the tourism studies in Pittsburgh for 20 years, it takes 4 or 5 things for someone to do, and it's not just the pirates, and it's not just the incline. The incline's great, but it only takes 8 minutes, okay? Station Square is wonderful, but yeah, there's stuff like that everywhere. Boat rides, great, but there's boat rides. They don't. It really, and I don't know a better strategy than what you're doing. I think the one thing that would be helpful though is to think about getting maybe some more partners that understand the value to them that tourism does really well. Industry partners and business partners. I know you have them, but if people that benefit from all these extra people knew how much value that was for people to stay overnight, I think you'd probably, so I think industry partners is probably an area where most tourism organizations never get to that. They're worried about everything else, and so business relationships are going to be really important. But I don't think there's a strategy that you're not doing. Actually, I think you're doing it very well. Yes, hi.
You're singing my tune. I'm the new director for the Visitors Bureau here
Welcome.
for Lackawanna County. And what you're saying is music to my ears, and I'm looking forward to working with everybody. It's a very exciting area, a lot of wonderful things here. Really looking forward to digging in.
Good. Well, welcome. And
Thank
you know,
you.
I'll tell you something. I'm a geographer. I don't know if you can tell, 'cause I know a little bit about geography. You have 20 million people right around you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you probably got 30 million people if you squint and think about a little more. You have 100 million people within a day's drive. So there's 300 million people. 100 million from Colorado west. Somehow 100 million people kind of down the middle and south, and 100 million people kind of up here in the Northeast. You're not low a number of people to get. It's just getting them. So the pond is big with lots of fish in it. So I think that one of the nice things you have is you're not remote at all. Actually, I've always said that if you look at the map and you go up from Google Earth, that Scranton-Wilkes-Barre is really the pivot point of the 90 million person Northeast. If you look at the way the highways meet, you're kind of where Boston to DC, New York to Ohio, or you know, if you want to go to Chicago, you can go that far out, kind of all meet here. And you know, it'd be a great place to be, to attract people. So you don't have a problem with that. So you're going to do well with
That's why I'm
the,
here.
the fish are there. So congratulations on your decision to come here, and it's great. Hi.
We're competing for jobs with the whole country. And if people are thinking about either establishing or expanding manufacturing, they're not going to do it here. We never had large factories. Our industry was below ground, and that industry got flooded. We don't have even what Detroit has, the city of Detroit proper, in terms of doing that. And I came here in 1983, and everyone was saying if we can get the hotel going, it's going to change everything. It's going to be a game changer. And then around 1985 or so, 40 people went up to Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and said, gee, if we can get Steamtown here, that's going to do it. I think we need some impetus that maybe isn't tourism, to help tourism in this area. And I don't know what it is, but I think we need to think about that, because we added a ski mountain. We put ourselves, we borrowed a lot of money to rebuild a ballpark. We've done all these things that cities our size have not done, and done them well.
Yeah.
Done them well, and yet it hasn't happened, what we thought was going to happen, beginning in 1983, not because I came to town, but beginning with that railroad station in 1983 to a hotel. Now, can you tell us or talk about, and Lackawanna College has done this, how do we somehow connect to the wealth in Gasland? Because I don't see anything new coming that's going to create the kind of wealth, the numbers of jobs that will make tourism, it will be a new impetus rather than tourism.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned energy. Energy's interesting. In our community, we have all the headquarters of Consol and all the 300 energy industries. Westinghouse, of course, nationally known. But that's where the permanent jobs are. For a lot of areas, they've not gotten permanent jobs out of the energy industry. They're getting the more seasonal. So I would say, if I had to bet on something, I would bet on folks that want to live in a beautiful place that has all the amenities that you've now created, but are probably not in traditional jobs like manufacturing or assembly or even energy, although energy has some potential. And I think if you think about the fact, I know there was plans for this at one point, but I always was kind of inspired by this sort of New York, have a 1 day a week there or 1 day a week in Philly and work from home here. And our company has 80% of our people work from home somewhere in the United States. And if we could start marketing this as a great place, if you don't have to be in Manhattan every day, nobody has to be anymore, or has to, in Center City, Philly, to have, and I know there was an idea one time to get a train line that would allow people to live and work here and then commute to the big cities. But your location, 2 hours from 2 big cities, is a very powerful. I think about that sometimes and think, wow, if this could be a place where, footloose, creative people could set up agencies, production facilities for film, for media, for, there's a lot of, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you go to a place like Northern Lights, I'm promoting them today, there's all kinds of young people there working on their computers doing stuff, and they might be doing film production, they might be doing advertising, they might be doing, and what a great quality of life place to do that stuff and not have to live and pay the cost and the pain of being in New York or Philly. So I think but how do you sell that? How do you promote that?
But let me add on to that.
Yeah.
You were talking about energy. You are very close to some large plays, and with these plays happening, you have a lot of out-of-state workers coming, and typically they come up, they leave their families behind, they come to visit.
Yeah.
And when they have a day off, they want to go somewhere with their families. And if you can work with the companies that are around with those oil and gas companies, it would be a great opportunity for the Visitors Bureau to go directly to those companies and say, this is what we have to offer here, bring your families here. It's low cost to come here for a day. Opposed to going to somewhere like Philadelphia where the family's going to spend a lot of money, they can come here and get a lot of good things. So reach out to those companies. I mean, go to them directly. We can speak to it in Pittsburgh. We have so many oil and gas workers there. And that is the case, that it is a lot of out-of-towners who come up, and then their families come up for several days for a long weekend. So reach out to them and let them know what's going on, because they don't know, because they're newcomers to the area.
Yeah.
And you're close to a lot of energy in this area and on the other side of the mountains. So take that opportunity and reach out to those folks.
Yeah. And it's all incremental. Unfortunately, and fortunately, the good news is it takes lots and lots of little things to build a great region. And the bad thing is it takes a lot of time and energy to do that. But the good news is this region has become much more diversified to the point where you're building the base is hard and long to build, but it's solid. If you build a base that's based on just one thing, then I think the key is an entrepreneurial spirit and reaching out to people that maybe don't want to live in the major metropolitan areas, but want to live in a community like this where it's got higher quality of life. And you really have to actively promote that. And I think heritage tourism is part of that. Your outdoors activities you have, you're within, although Scranton's a city, if you look from Google Earth, the urban part is actually pretty small when you consider what the environment is. And the environment is, a wonderful draw too. So I think that's important, that people that come from other states might think that this is all one big city that goes all the way to New York. They'll learn when they get here that that's not true at all. So, well, Natalie, I'll give you back to your group. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
I don't really have much to add, except to say that we are fortunate as well to have new people here with new creative energy. Debbie Conway, who's the new superintendent of Steamtown, and Susan Ensler, who introduced herself as the new executive director of the Visitors Bureau, and the new executive director of the Chamber of Commerce happens to be our own Bob Durkin, who I might have been wrong on Senator Blake being the first chair, but I'm not wrong on Bob Durkin being the first executive director of the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority. And he understands it as better than anybody. And so now we have these new ideas coming from our Chamber of Commerce, who instead of just saying, oh, by the way, we have this, they understand the quality of life issues. Bob introduced the speakers at our Trails to Prosperity conference, and he gets it. Susan obviously gets it and looks at the opportunity, and Debbie gets it. And we've already had, just at our morning roundtable today, a lot of new ideas about what we can do to promote the things that you're talking about. And by the way, the state of Pennsylvania every 5 years does an outdoor recreation plan, and they ask people what's most important to you, and the number one thing was the outdoors, their trails and forests. And so that, you're right, Paul. And then we have health and wellness and these health and wellness organizations. The group that was here last week, Hiccup, that was selecting the five top cities for health measurement changes, and Scranton is in the running. They're in the top 10 and hopefully in the top 5 and potentially getting 5 million. The first thing they mentioned, the person who spoke, was our trail, and that most cities don't have this kind of a trail right in the urban area. And you go into our trail right within the city, you could feel like you're out in the country. So we know about it. I think those are great ideas. I think both of you have offered us some great ideas, and thank you so much. And last but not least, I'd also like to promote what Paul said about doing a trail study. In 2009, we didn't even have the Riverwalk. We did not have Southside, the CNJ Extension Trail from Elm Street south to Taylor with the Native American heritage. We didn't have the connection between Archbold and German, and we didn't have 3 bridges north of Carbondale that connected our part of the trail to the Delaware and Hudson part of the trail, which is north and goes all the way up to the New York state border. So we actually have a trail system that is not 40 miles, but it's 70 miles. And we would love to do another study, but we need money to do that. So if you know anybody, we are starting to work with industry and private corporations. We have our Linda Majensky, who's just celebrating her first year anniversary with us, who's a fabulous grants writer and has found lots of foundation opportunities through our Heritage Valley Partners 501c3. We just learned yesterday we got another $25,000 from the McGowan Foundation. Justin, you'll be happy to know this, to match the money we got for the Carbondale Riverwalk. We're just $25,000 shy of matching the $500,000 that we got from DCNR. And so we are starting to work with private companies and corporations, and it would be lovely, because I know my colleague in Pittsburgh, Augie Carlino, gets his studies funded by companies, and maybe we could, if you know anybody who understands and appreciates the value of this, they might be willing to help us at least share the cost of a study to show how important the trail is with industrial and economic development. So thank you all for coming. It's been great. We love working with all of you, and we will continue to do it. Thank you very much.